Hey everybody, so we're in the middle of a pretty major upgrade series where we're outfitting a new Poseidon Ambition X gravel bike with the new microshift stored group set, new wheels and tires, and a thru-axle conversion kit. So in this quick video, I thought I'd run you through the process of installing a thru-axle conversion kit for the Poseidon X and the Poseidon Ambition X. So in stock form, the Poseidon X and the Ambition X come with quick release axles. So if you want to upgrade to the more modern and arguably stronger thru-axle mounting system, you can buy the Poseidon kit that allows you to upgrade to a thru-axle system. Now at the front of the bike, the only way to do this is to install a new fork. And so this is a fork that comes with the thru-axle conversion kit. You can see that the mounting system is made for a thru-axle. And for the rear of the bike, we actually have to swap out the dropouts. So the rear of the bike is arguably easier to convert, so we'll start here. First thing I want to do is to put the chain in the smallest cog on the cassette and disengage the clutch on the derailleur. And that'll make it much easier to drop the wheel out of the frame. Now next, you actually want to remove the rear derailleur, and that's done by removing the 5mm Allen bolt here. Do your best to hold it in place as you unscrew it so you don't strip the threads as it comes off. Now next is to remove the two stock quick release dropouts from the frame by removing the two 3mm Allens per side. And then just do the same for both sides. You can set the non-drive side thru-axle dropout on the left-hand side of the bike. And the dropout will sit in the frame from the outboard side, and it'll screw in from the inboard side. Just a 3mm Allen wrench, so don't go overboard with the torque. Then it's the same idea for the drive side. You'll want to lightly grease the thru-axle, both a little bit on the threads as well as the axle itself. Just feed that in from the non-drive side, and that'll thread into the dropout. So at this point you can reinstall the derailleur, install your new thru-axle rear wheel, and you're ready to go. Now at the front of the bike, it's a little bit more complicated. The first thing we want to do is to remove the front wheel, and we're actually going to want to remove the front brake caliper as well. And that's done by removing these two bolts here, which bolt the adapter plate to the fork. Now if you haven't already done so, you want to release the cable tension, which is a 5mm Allen bolt right here. That'll allow the cable to pull out, and you can remove the caliper entirely. Now we are going to have to pull the internally routed brake cable through the fork leg. And then we can work on removing the stem so we can drop the fork out. Start by loosening the two stem pinch bolts, which are opposing each other. Once these are loose, the handlebars should be able to spin freely with respect to the fork, but you won't be able to take the stem off until you remove the preload cap on the top. So this will unthread entirely. You can pull that out. You just want to make sure to support the fork from the bottom as you remove the stem, just in case the fork wants to fall out on its own. Now with the handlebars off, it's probably okay to let them dangle, but I always prefer to hang the handlebars from the frame or maybe the work stand. Just make sure you're not going to scratch up the frame when you do this. So now you can remove any additional headset spacers from the top. And the fork should just pop right out. And give it a little tap. The upper dust cap on the headset may be kind of tight. So I don't know why that one was so tight, but sometimes it does require a little bit of persuasion. Now the headset you can leave intact. It is possible that the lower bearing will fall out, so just keep that in mind. Now this is one critical step that you cannot skip. The stock fork is going to have a crown race on it, and we've got to transfer this over to the new fork. Now thankfully with most modern headsets, they use cartridge bearings, which means that you can get away with using a split crown race. I don't know if you can see it there. There's a little split in this ring, which means it doesn't need to be press fit down onto the fork crown. So this should just pop off really easily. And we're going to put this on the new fork. So this is a new fork here. The new crown race will eventually just slide right down towards the crown, and then we might have to just give it a little bit of a push so that it sits nice and flush on the fork crown itself. But that is all you have to do to transfer over the fork crown race. Now there's a couple of more steps that we have to do. The new fork is uncut, and so the steer tube is really long. So I think what we're going to do is just mark the new fork at the exact same height as the old fork and make the cut there. But before we do that, we have to do one last thing, which is to remove the compression plug from the existing fork. So the compression plug is what goes in the top of the fork steer, and that's what the stem preload bolt threads into and allows you to preload the headset bearings. So this is just a 6mm Allen, and you don't have to remove it completely. You've just got to loosen it up so that the plug can slide out. So one easy way to do this kind of quickly is to butt the stock steer tube up against the new fork crown, and then put a mark on the new steer tube, which is flush with the old fork crown. I know some of you are probably going to yell at me down in the comments for doing this, but we're not cutting this fork down to someone's exact measurements. Cutting it right here, plus or minus a couple millimeters, is still going to give us plenty of steer tube to work with. Now, I don't always follow my own advice. If you've got a respirator, now would be a great time to use it. There are carbon fiber specific blades you can use. In my experience, a regular hacksaw works fine. Smell like Darth Vader. I'll give it just a light sand to take off any fibrous burrs. Make sure you clean off all that carbon fiber dust. This stuff is pretty nasty. Can you even hear me? Just a light layer of grease on the crown race. Of course, we do need to reinstall the compression plug. And we're going to tighten that down again with a 6mm Allen wrench. I think the spec for these is between 4 and 5 Newton meters. Like so. Make sure that the bearing did not fall out of the bottom of the head tube. You can go ahead and slide the fork up. Make sure that it sits nicely on the bearing race. A little conical compression washer will slide down, and then this pesky sort of dust cap will have to push down on top. Well, that one went on nice and smooth. And then any combination of headset spacers and stem. 2 10mm spacers. You just want this tight enough so that it's just slightly snug. You want the headset to spin freely, like so. And you don't want any play in those bearings at all. So I'm just going to cinch the stem pinch bolts down. And then again, we're going to lightly grease the threads of our through axle and thread it in from the non-drive side. Now at this point, all that's left to do is to refeed the front brake cable through the fork leg and reinstall the brake caliper. Like so. And I think that's about it. Alright, well that's the process for installing the thru-axle conversion kit on your Poseidon X or your Poseidon Ambition X. Of course, in order to take advantage of this conversion kit, you will need new wheels with a thru-axle hub design. And so that's what we have here. This is a set of Hunt 650B Adventure wheels. And we're going to see how these roll on the Poseidon Ambition X, along with a ton of other upgrades. And so I hope you'll follow along in the series and check out those videos when you have a minute. Thanks again for watching, and thanks for subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you next time.